Okay, guys, look, I know there's been a couple of changes of late with a few players coming in, players going out, but these two games coming up could make or break our title chances, okay? We've got the Phoenix and the Derby. We haven't lost one of these yet. Let's make sure we fresh them and Chiefy. And then the Mariners. They're our bogey team, but if we beat them, that should be a big enough gap to see us get home for the title, okay? Let's make it second season champions, boys. Make up for last season and get one over this bogey team. Come on.
Party in the streets and the city's on fire.
Hello everyone and welcome to episode number 18 of the New Zealand Builder Nation here on Shaun Does FM with both the All Whites and with AFC Auckland coming up today, two games which could define the rest of our season and go a long way to seeing if we can lift our first A-League title of the save. First up, we take on the Phoenix in a New Zealand derby at Mount Smart. So far we have not lost to those guys, and off the back of that as well as a 7th round cup tie in the Australian Cup against the Western Sydney Wanderers, we then take on the Central Coast Mariners, currently the team closest to us and our bogey team so far in the save 3 games against them, and we have lost all of them. So if you're looking forward to those two games coming up in today's episode, then do remember to go down below, leave a thumbs up on the video, and if you haven't done so already and are enjoying the series here on the channel, also consider hitting that subscribe button and turning that notification bell on as well. It is greatly appreciated, but we're picking up pretty much right where we left off at the end of today's episode, having played no games since we took on the Wanderers and the Perth Glory. If you missed that episode, I'll leave a link to it over in the top right corner. Also, transfer recap, there was a takeover, and I found out that I had a son who's part Uruguayan. So if you missed the episode, do make sure to check it out. But thankfully, we picked up wins in both of those games, which does mean currently 6 points clear of the Mariners on top of the A-League. That second game today, if we can win it, finally get a win against the Mariners, that would take us a long way, with only 6 games left in the season at that stage, to being champions in our second season of existence. But before then, we do take on our rivals here in New Zealand in the Wellington Phoenix, albeit a team who have been on the rise of late, as you'll see shortly when we do look at the club and the new star man who came through their youth and take an exciting player, especially for the national team, a player who might feature in our next World Cup qualifier. But before then, just one thing in terms of us off the back of yesterday's episode, and it is an injury update. We've picked up a few more, and that good situation that we did have has gone back to being a bit of a bad one. Stefan Negro and Michael Wood are still out, albeit these days in their rehab programs. Negro about 3 weeks away, and Wood might be back in time for that second game of today's episode. But of course, Alex Paulson is the usual first choice. So those two will be out for the course of today's episode, and they probably wouldn't have been starting anyway, being backup players. But a few more injuries we have picked up since then. The first one to our usual starting left back in Van de Bango. He sprained some ankle ligaments. He is out for 6 days to 3 weeks, so it does mean now a little bit weak in terms of left back options. Thankfully got a half decent one come through in our youth intake yesterday. He'll make his way onto the bench, and Nathan Lobo, he can be the first choice, but unfortunately one of the best left backs in the league in Van de Bango will be missing for both of these games. And also Gavin Tormine, a pulled hamstring, is out for 4 to 8 days, so it does mean he'll miss this first game of today's episode, with 2 week gaps now between our A-League fixtures. Should be back in time for that big clash when we do take on the Central Coast, albeit it was pretty poor in yesterday's episode. So I think either way, we would have been starting our young Georgian in Georgie Fernandse over him anyway, but that will now definitely be the case going into this first game of today's episode, as well as the yellow shot being replaced by Gianni Bazookas. There's our team going into the first game of today's episode. We do take on the Phoenix. Hopefully that is a team that we can beat. So far in the save, have a very good record against the Wellington Phoenix. It was a bit close last season, but first game this season, from memory, did it relatively comfortably, albeit they come into this one having surged up the table off the back of some pretty good recent results. Their only loss of late did come in the 5th round of the Australian Cup after extra time against the Western Sydney Wanderers. That is how we are playing them. Could have been a New Zealand derby in our next game in the Australian Cup. But either side of that, they've picked up wins over Melbourne City, the Brisbane Roar, Newcastle Jets, and Sydney FC. That most recent one in particular, quite a good result, because Sydney FC are up and third on the table, at least for now. Western Sydney could go above them during the course of today's episode, but it does mean these days it does look like a bit of a 2-horse race for the A-League title this season, but hopefully we can pick up a good result here against the Wellington Phoenix, especially because they don't have their best player available, because he's just come through their youth intake. I wish I got someone like this in our youth intake yesterday, because he looks phenomenal. This is Adam White. He's a left back, kind of in the vein of Libero Kakache, of course, a good left back they used to have there at the Wellington Phoenix. He's only 15 years old. 10 days from now, he can play professionally. So there's just this one more game that he has to sit out before he can make his professional debut, and he's a quality player. The Phoenix would be silly not to start him. He's already ranked as the best player at the club at only 15 years old. And I've compared him to some players in our New Zealand senior national team setup. He would already be the second best left back in the country behind Libero Kakache. So he's someone to keep a big eye out on throughout the rest of the course of the rest of this save. So he's someone who could potentially make his debut for us when we take on Tahiti in March in our next game in World Cup qualifying, especially if Libby is under some minute restrictions, as some of those players coming from Europe can be for games against Oceania opposition. But Adam White, certainly a name to remember. Very, very promising left back. No doubt that value will shoot up as he gets some senior football once he does turn 16 years old, but certainly a real gem there for the Phoenix coming through their youth intake, while we got my son, who didn't look quite as promising, but still 4 stars potential, just a little bit lower. That current ability wasn't quite so high, but Adam White certainly a very good new gen coming through for the New Zealand national team at least, and will certainly get into the mix sooner rather than later for those upcoming World Cup qualifiers. But for this game, the Phoenix can't use him. They'll have to wait until the game after this, which is quite nice for us. Hopefully does mean we can pick up a win and make sure we can keep ourselves in a good position above the Central Coast Mariners going into that second game of today's episode. And we'll come back shortly and hopefully make it 4 wins from 4 over the Wellington Phoenix. And here are the team sheets for this New Zealand derby from Mount Smart. In terms of us, obviously a couple of changes for those injuries to both Debango and to Tormin. It does mean Loba at left back and our Georgian at left wing. Also, as I said earlier, Gianni up front over Jello, and young Dudley from our youth intake yesterday on the bench as left back cover. And also to Hotman de Villiers is on the bench as the left wing cover, usually a striker, but that's where he'll be. The Phoenix were there before. Got a good record against them so far in the save. Hopefully it continues going in to that big clash against the Central Coast. And a very early highlight in this game, we're looking to play out from the back here through Alex Paulson, the former Phoenix man, and thankfully doesn't take long for us here to make our way briefly into the opposition half, albeit not for long, but eventually back in there with Pascali. Now Ronaldo will play that one forward to Malg, gets taken out. Some pretty fortunate deflections there for us from tackles, and Gianni Bazookas, the former Wellington Olympic man, will thump that one home into the right-hand corner. It's quite similar to some of the goals that we scored during yesterday's episode in a game against the Western Sydney Wanderers, I believe, where both goals were somewhat fortunate, but a couple of tackles there, which thankfully do fall at the feet of our players. It eventually finds its way to Gianni Bazookas, who beats Jalabak in goal, and we take a nice early 1-0 lead at Mount Smart. And right on the 15-minute mark, next highlight of this game, and yet again we are on the attack this time, looking like we're in control of the ball. A bit better than from that first goal we scored. We float that one into the mix, so looking for Ronaldo. Can't quite find him, but Kellen Elliott will pick that ball up. Duslan Rodriguez there on that far side, and Georgi Kvernadze already has his third goal of the season. Not the best time for Gavin Tormin to both lose his form and then get injured, because Kvernadze should be better than him attribute-wise, and to be fair, you can kind of see it in the games he's played so far. That's already his third goal of the season. Good header there into the ground, to be fair. Those are very overpowered in this year's game. 2 highlights so far, 2 goals, and we're 2-0 up inside 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Albeit just off the back of that second goal, a bit of a disaster for us here at AFC Auckland with that big game coming up against the Mariners. Ronaldo will be forced from the field here with an injury, hopefully not too serious, especially these days with those 2-week gaps in between our A-League games. Because of that, I think we'll play things safe here and bring on young Matt Wilson. He's been quite good for us, the youngster from last year's youth intake, when we've used him, seeing as at the moment Jack Henry Sinclair is the right back backup, so we'll make that change and enforce one early. Still with a 2-0 lead, albeit shortly off the back of that. We have a free kick here looking early to make it 3-0. Chance there for Teo Atema. It actually took a deflection, that one, off of Mackay. Interesting highlight. Just behind my head there, Central Coast 2-0 up over Sydney FC. We'll keep an eye out on their games either side of this one, because they look quite difficult potentially for the Central Coast, but we are still on the attack here with our 2-0 lead. Good chance there for the Georgian to pick up a double, good save there from Jalovac to keep it at 2-0. And right off the back of that, another highlight hero thrown inside of the final third. But just that one concern so far from this game, that injury to Ronald. But with a 2-0 lead early, hopefully we can just make sure we hold on here for all 3 points. Wilson, he's picked up a couple of assists early in his Phoenix career. That one found its way to Bazookas. Apparently actually came off Sherman, so we'll go out for a corner. But that was an interesting looking highlight. Looked like a bit of a chance there for Gianni to pick up a double. Now a corner, which Mitchell gets his head on the end of. Some interesting highlights, but it's still 2-0, just past the half-hour mark. And only a few minutes on from those previous chances, now it's another highlight in this game, albeit for the first time. It does look like here the Phoenix might be on the attack so far. They've done nothing in this game. We've been the team who have been on the front foot. Nice ball for there for Nguyen, but great work from Alex Paulson. Just comes out of his box with a bit of a slide tackle. Thankfully wins the ball. A little bit iffy here at the back, but thankfully we are just keeping possession. Nguyen did pick up all 3 goals in that 3-1 win in the last game over Sydney FC. Definitely a player to keep an eye on both for the Phoenix today and potentially for future All Whites due. But Wilson now is on the attack for us as we try and do something on the counter-attack. Wilson squares that one for Gianni Bazookas. He picks up his 10th goal of the season. Matt Wilson doing a brilliant job for us as the backup in that right wing position, since we did lose Mohamed Ahataran and also made him a bit more of a left wing option before he left, while we also moved Sinclair to a right back option. But great work from him. He can see up the goals while Ronald is off the field, and Bazookas coming in doing a very good job as well. And that should mean we go into half-time with a 3-0 lead. And indeed, that is the case. An absolutely dominant first half from us here at AFC Auckland. The Phoenix really just did that one chance it looked like through Nguyen late in the first half. And even then, Paulson actually got us on the counter-attack through the tackle he made. And down the other end, Bazookas picked up the second of his goals, grabbed one early. And in between that, it was Fernandez who picked up one to make it 3-0 at half-time. Now, I'm going to take off here Taylor Tamer on a yellow card. I do unfortunately think that means he misses our next game through suspension, but hopefully that will be in the Cup and not the A-League when we do take on the Central Coast Mariners. But brilliant first half. Hopefully we can keep it going and bump the Phoenix. And just come up to the hour mark, nothing doing so far in the second half, apart from the fact that Sebastian Pascali has picked up a yellow card, play things safe here, and bring on Louis Toomey in his place. And going forward 10 more minutes, I think it's time for us here as we're about to make our way into the last 15 of this game. We'll bring some players off the bench to make sure they can get some reins. We'll take off Nathan Lobo with our lack of depth at left back. Paris Dudley, who came through our youth intake yesterday, only 3-star potential, but did look the best of our left backs. He can come on late in this game. And also, we'll take off Stefan Malk for Bruce Azumi as we continue to hold on to this 3-0 lead. And nearly into the last 10 minutes of this game, the Phoenix there with a loop ball over the top, but their former man in between the sticks, and Alex Paulson can claim that for us. But this has been a very quiet second half so far off the back of those 3 goals we did score in the first half. Now Nunez plays that for the young man on debut in Paris Dudley. We'll see what he can do. So far, our youth intake prospects actually doing a good job when they have come up to the first team. Here's another in Matt Wilson, his first goal for the club at A-League level. And it's an absolute stunner as well. Just chips that one over Jalovac, who was off his line only slightly. That's a very composed finish there from the young right winger. He's picked up an assist and a goal since coming on for the injured Ronald. But that is a pinpoint finish there for the young 16-year-old these days. Hasn't even turned 17 yet. He looks like a very promising player based on what we're seeing in the match engine. And off the back of that, another highlight here where we are trying to build from the back and yet again get the ball out there to Wilson, albeit cuts inside a bit more than you'd expect him to. Now Cullen Elliott picks out Wilson, goes looking for a double, but there's a good save from Jalovac in goal. And off the back of that, we now have a corner which Fernandez will take short to Azumi. He gets brought down there by Sloan Rodriguez. We'll see if we get shown the free kick, as we might be looking here for a 5-0 lead. We look there for Sullivan at the far post. Yet again, though, the Phoenix had that one clear this time through Kelly Hill. Just checking if I didn't accidentally turn on to the full match, but indeed, we are still on key highlights. Another corner, we go far post. Can't quite pick out someone there. Wilson will tidy things up for us. It goes back to Elliott. That's that highlight. Bit of a weird one, but we're still 4-0 in front. And now into 3 minutes of added time in this game. To be fair, this one has been complete one-way traffic at its surprising considering the Phoenix of late have been in very good form, but that is a 4-0 thrashing that we've given out there to the Knicks at Mount Smart Stadium. Definitely the most convincing margin so far in a New Zealand derby, and it should mean our goal differential over the Central Coast, even if they beat us second up in today's episode over in Gosford, should still be pretty strong. So even if they do draw level on points with us, we will definitely have that goal differential in our favour. But hopefully, finally, we can actually take some points off them. But very good win for us there. The one concern, that potential injury to Ronald, will go forward and check that before we go forward a couple of weeks, before we play the second game of today's episode. Also in between now and then, I need to play the cup game that we take on the Western Sydney Wanderers. Thankfully, we do have the home rights for that one, seeing as it is a clash between two A-League teams. I thought we should hold on to those and make the most of potentially getting a good run in the cup. But there you can see, for now, we are 6 points clear the Central Coast Mariners. They picked up a 3-1 win over Sydney FC, so it does mean the gap going back to third continues to grow. So I definitely think now this is a 2-horse race for the A-League title. Hopefully we can finally do something against the Mariners second up in today's episode, maybe even beat them. But Ronald will be gone for that game, out for 4 to 6 weeks. To be fair, does mean he won't miss too many games off the back of that one with these 2-week gaps that we currently have. But unfortunately, the injuries continue to pile up here at AFC Auckland, but off the back of a very convincing win over the Phoenix. And we have gone for 2 weeks off the back of that impressive win over the Wellington Phoenix, about to play the top of the table clash here in Gosford against the Central Coast Mariners, a team so far we have lost to on all 3 occasions we've played them in the A-League. In between then and now, we did just play that one game in the 7th round of the Australian Cup, the final round, before the teams who won made their way through to the quarterfinals. And as you can see there, we continue our winning streak. We pick up a 3-2 win over the Wanderers. This was a game that we actually should have won a lot more convincingly, because we had such a big break off back of this game. Did actually put out quite a strong team for this game. Also, seeing as Vood still coming back from injury, he wasn't fit. Did mean Alex Paulson got another running goal, which usually wouldn't be the case as well. But as you can see, pretty strong lineup that we did put out, albeit Matt Wilson in for the injured Ronald. But yet again, he did a decent job. We were very dominant in the first half, as you'll see from the match momentum graph there. Just got a goal before the half though through Kvernadze after half-time to Hotman de Villiers, who came on and played left wing for the second half, while Kvernadze moved in to the central attacking midfield role with Stefan Malk struggling. He grabbed a goal and grabbed one late at the 84-minute mark off the back of Ricardo Ramos grabbing one back for Western Sydney. They grabbed another one back pretty soon on the 86-minute mark through Ryan Jaeger, the Jaeger bomb, but thankfully we do hold on and pick up a 3-2 win, which based on stats we definitely deserved. Just not too sure how we didn't win that game by more. So it does mean we are through to the quarterfinals of the Australian Cup, and we'll take on a team from lower down the divisions in that competition. In Gold Coast United, they are a team who are down in the NPL Queensland, predicted to finish second. They are down in 7th. That should be a team we can beat. So it might mean we've got a chance of potentially lifting a double here this season at AFC Auckland. The only other A-League teams left in that competition. 2 of them face each other off. The Newcastle Jets will play one of the Melbourne Victory or Western United, and the other team is a struggling Melbourne City. They take on the North Queensland Fury. That is not an easy task for them, as those guys also in the NPL Queensland, just like Gold Coast United. So a good chance there for us to hopefully lift 2 trophies this season, as long as we don't bottle things in the A-League. And if we're going to do that, that will probably happen in our next game when we do take on the Central Coast Mariners. So far our bogey team in the save, albeit they are also the best team so far in the save, back-to-back champions of the A-League. Still Mark Jackson in charge. Still a pretty similar looking squad to the one we've taken on the last couple of seasons. Unfortunately, not quite as many players coming back from injury as I thought we might have for the second game of today's episode. In particular, Gavin Tormain, he picked up a second injury off the back of that first game we did play in today's episode. These days a pulled calf muscle, so he is out for 10 days to 3 weeks. So it does mean that Georgi Kvernadze will keep his starting spot at left wing. To be fair, that probably would have been the case anyway, but Hotman de Villiers can stay the backup off the back of that impressive performance coming off the bench in that cup win over the Western Sydney Wanderers. And also, unfortunately, because we did play quite a strong lineup in that cup game, some players were sitting on yellow cards that could be suspended for this one, and Adam Mitchell was one of those players, to be fair, carrying a bit of a bruised knee into this game anyway, so it might not have been the worst one for him to miss, but he can't play it. He is suspended, so it does mean also a change at the back that could impact us going into this big top of the table clash, but hopefully we can finally pick up a result here against the Central Coast and at least keep ourselves 6 points clear of them with 6 games left to go. In the A-League, we'll come back shortly from Gosford and try and beat the Mariners in front of the sauce bottles. And here are the team sheets for this big top of the table clash late on in the A-League season. There are the Central Coast going with the 4-3-3, coming to this one just like us on a big winning patch of form. A couple of changes for us. Victoros comes in for the suspended Mitchell, and also Sinclair at right in place of Matt Wilson. A little bit tired, so he drops down to the bench. Sinclair can start at right wing, and also, as I said, the Hotman de Villiers will be the left wing backup, while Tormeen is still out with that injury. So a bit of a different looking squad from that first game, and a couple of positions, and an early highlight here yet again. We're in the white and blue hoops, Central Coast in the yellow with a little dash of blue, and we're on possession here nice and early. Hopefully can get off to a good start here, especially away from home against the team who so far in the save we've really struggled against. Actually was thinking if maybe we should try a different tactical style against them. So far the vertical tiki-taka hasn't really worked against the Mariners. We'll give it one more chance here and see if we should maybe change things up against these teams who are actually quite good in the A-League. But early chance here for Kvernadze, who rattles that one into the top right corner past Franco, apparently the best goalkeeper in the A-League, and that's a brilliant start. Less than a minute in here at Gosford. We take a 1-0 lead. Some slick passing up the field here. Sinclair pings this one forward to Bazookas. He turns, and Kvernadze in a very tight pocket of space there does get that shot off, and thankfully does find the top right corner. First shot, first goal, and we take a very early 1-0 lead. Albeit very short left back of that opening goal. Now we're down the other end here for a corner to the Mariners. They'll flick this one near post. It gets flicked on a couple of times, and Max Ballard's there to poke that one home. Hopefully he was offside, but I can't see the assistant referee lifting his flag up there in front of the big screen. So unfortunately, I do think this goal might count. Unfortunately, it does, and we're not in front for long. Central Coast big us back pretty much immediately here. An interesting set-piece routine, just some aerial ping-pong, and Alex Paulson tried to make a save there. Didn't quite get a touch on it. Simple tap and Ballard, and it's 1-1 just past the 10-minute mark. And it looks like that was it for the first half. Just those two highlights. We scored an early goal first highlight through Kvernadze. Keeps his good form going since he joined the club, but unfortunately pegged back soon from Ballard from a corner. For the Mariners, to be fair, has been quite an even game, so I think 1-1 is a fair scoreline. But a couple of players for us here are on yellow cards. Cullen Elliott is one. Because of that, we're going to move Sinclair back to right back and bring on Wilson in his place, and also Taylor Tamer on a yellow card as well. Louis Toomey was the suggested substitute. Unfortunately, Nick Sullivan, another player, currently out with an injury, so Toomey will cover DM for the second half of this game. So a couple of changes, but hopefully we can at least hold on here for a draw. Not a bad result with that 6-point gap we have on top of the table, but maybe could also find a way to pick up a win and finally grab all 3 points against the Mariners. And a very early highlight here in this second half, and thankfully it might be in our favour here from a corner. The ball eventually finds its way to young Matt Wilson off the bench. Nice ball out there to Bazookas. Does feel like those two have quite a nice link up. Now Pascali from just outside the box, decent chance there, but unfortunately puts that one high and wide, and it's still locked up at 1-1. And now making our way just past the hour mark in this game, I'm just checking on some player ratings. Stefan Malk, usually not a player you want to take off, but today he's on a 6.4. Bit risky against the Mariners, but we'll take him off for Bruce Izumi and hopefully try and kick on and pick up all 3 points with a half hour left. And only a couple of minutes on from that substitution. Now it's a corner here to the Mariners. They put that one into the mix of Paulson. Can't quite punch it clear far enough, and the Mariners here are still on the attack. Paul plays that one back to Steele, and now it's Farrell here just inside the box. Wilson actually with a tackle there. It's very iffy, but thankfully we do clear our lines. The Mariners, though, will have yet another corner, but it's certainly putting some pressure on us here with 20 minutes left in this one at Gosford. They float that one into the mix of this time. Paulson comes out and claims it, and thankfully that'll keep it at 1-1 with 20 minutes left. And in fact, now we're down the other end for a throw. And Sinclair these days in the second half is at right back. He takes it We control possession. Now Nunez makes his way forward, picks out Wilson, unfortunately, but loose on the ball, and a chance here for the Mariners on the counter-attack. Marco Tulio makes his way into the final third, squares that thankfully Toomey heads it away, and good work from Azumi. It might actually be a chance for us here to do something to try and make it 2-1, but poor pass there, and now a chance for the Mariners on the counter-attack themselves. Tulio from a tight angle, thankfully takes on the shot, goes into the siding. Bit of a funny highlight, that one, but thankfully still 1-1 as we're about to make our way into the last 15 minutes. We'll just check here on some player ratings and fitness late in this game. And of the players actually out there, Nathan Lobo is on a 6.4, so a bit of a brave call this, but Paris Dudley did pretty decently coming off the bench against the Phoenix. We'll see what he can do against the Central Coast Mariners, and we'll see if we can keep this at 1-1 with 15 minutes left. And very short left back of that previous substitution, now it's Pascali down to a red hut, so that'll be our final substitution. I think we might actually bring on here Stephen Havaliers, so Toomey can go forward to that deep line playmaker role he's a bit more familiar in. And also Lucas Nunez can cover the DM role, just see who's a bit better suited to that. And it is Lucas Nunez. We'll put him forward into the DM role. Havaliers can play centre back alongside Victor Ross for the last 10 or so minutes of this game, as we look to at least hold on here for a point against the Mariners. And right on the 83-minute mark here, late highlight in this game, unfortunately, it is the Mariners still finds himself in a ton of space, some terrible marking, and young Matt Wilson just gives the Mariners here a chance to get right back in the title race. That is definitely a penalty. Not sure what we're doing there defensively from that free kick. Hopefully Alex Paulson can finally step up for us from the penalty spot. Hall will take this one. He goes bottom left corner, and Alex Paulson with a massive save finally actually pulls one off, much like in real life. Off the back of that, we're going to try and go a bit wider just to see if that might get us going a bit more in terms of our attack in this game. Also distribute to fullbacks as well, just see if that will throw something different at the Mariners late in this game. But that is a big moment from Alex Paulson. Could keep our gap on top of the A-League at 6 points with only 6 games remaining. And off the back of this, we do take on some pretty weak teams. Paulson punches that one clear. Thankfully, the highlight stops. Make our way into the last 5 minutes of this game. As you can see, still been a very even game in terms of most stats. XG certainly in favour of the Mariners, but obviously the penalty did help with that. But thankfully, Alex Paulson with a massive save, and we finally take some points off the Central Coast Mariners in our 4th time of asking in this save. It's a 1-1 draw. Could have been better, especially off the back of that very early goal, which we did score through Georgie Fernandez, but unfortunately considered a bit of a funny one off the back of that from a corner. But at the very least, Alex Paulson with a massive late save off the back of a pretty silly penalty we give away off the back of some poor set-piece defending, and it will keep us 6 points clear on top of the A-League with only 6 games left. And to be fair, not many of them against good teams. A 1-1 draw in Gosford. So a huge late penalty save there from Alex Paulson to make sure we pick up a point from the Central Coast. So it does mean going to our last couple of games of the season, 6 points clear of the Mariners. Hopefully that's a big enough buffer to make sure we can lift the A-League title in the second season of this save, especially with that goal differential as well. 45 compared to 21. I think just making sure we have the same amount of points as the Mariners should be enough for us to lift the A-League title in the second season of this save. And the Western Sydney Wanderers these days have gone up to third, as both Sydney FC and the Melbourne Victory don't seem to want to finish in third very much. They're both losing quite a few games over the last couple of match days, but that will do it for today's episode, picking up a nice win there first up over the Phoenix and yet another New Zealand derby, and off the back of that finally take some points from the Central Coast, albeit largely thanks to a late penalty save from Alex Paulson. If you enjoyed today's episode, then do remember to go down below, leave a thumbs up on the video, and if you haven't done so already and are enjoying the series here on the channel, also consider hitting that subscribe button and turning that notification bell on as well. We'll come back at the start of next week. I don't think it's going to take us very long to get through the remainder of the season. Of course, only 6 games left, and to be fair, most coming up don't look that tough. Next up, Melbourne City really struggling in the save, albeit do look to be on the rise a little bit off the back of a poor start to the season. Off the back of that, we are away to the Brisbane Roar, also in the bottom half of the A-League table. Then we take on the Gold Coast United in that Aussie Cup quarter-final at Mount Smart. that should be a game we are also winning. We might be able to come back for the semi-final potentially of that competition. Newcastle, another team we should be beating down in a relegation playoff position. I think we might come back around the time of our away trip to Sydney FC. There could be a chance that could be a game where we could clinch the A-League title if we can pick up 3 points in that one. Obviously, if that could happen sooner, we'll come back before then, but I think that's the game that does look the most likely that could happen. And also, if we do wrap up the title by then, we could give young Adam Does FM his debut in the first team, because of course in April he does turn 16 years old and can start to play some professional football. But I think we'll come back at the start of next week, potentially with a chance to lift our first A-League title of this save, and also maybe give young Adam Does FM his debut, or we could be playing a semi-final of the Australian Cup, and before then we will take on Tahiti in our next World Cup qualifier. We'll do a recap of that game, albeit definitely one that we should be winning with this New Zealand team. But we'll come back at the start of next week, potentially lift our first trophy with AFC Auckland of this save. So until then, thank you very much for watching, keep on keeping on, and I'll see you then. Cheers.